Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back, and thank you for joining me on this journey. Today's episode, we're going to look at starting your seedling, actually starting to plant. And I'm going to try to show you with different methods or different options if you're doing how you're doing what you're doing, just to start planting. And then when you start planting, typically you start with peppers, especially the hot peppers, because they need a lot of time to grow. So I tend to start my peppers towards the end of February, and then I start my tomatoes middle of March. So you guys get two two chances to see it all. Today I'll just plant my peppers, and then our next episode will be for tomatoes. It's just typically the same method to follow through, but in case you miss one, you can get the other one, or you want to see it twice. Different methods. Who knows? Okay, so to get started, change the angle of my camera so you can actually see hands-on in terms of what I'm doing and how I'm doing what I need to do. What I use as my go-to every year is I have this, I got this trays from Dollarama. I remember I told you I like to use the big cups. And because this is going into my daughter's room, I typically wrap it in a bin bag, just so that in case anything happens, there are leaks or anything of that nature, nothing pours on the floor of her room. I just envelope it. I can see. Just put it in there. Yeah, so this is just my additional layer for protection. So in case anything knocks down or anything happens in here, one of my cups leak or the tray doesn't catch, nothing pours on. So this is my typical setup when I'm all done. As I said before, I prefer using the bigger party cups. So this is it. And then I put the one without the hole in, and then the ones with the holes on top, and I put it here. And I find that these are a bit more sustainable because these are I'm recycling. These are the ones I used last year to seed. And for this one, as I mentioned, if you're starting to plant, start planting your peppers, especially the ones that may be a little bit hot. So today for this tray, and I like to group things, so I don't like using many of these because I find that once you're done using them, they're thrown away and they're wasted. So I like to put my things in batches. So for this tray here, everything in this tray is going to be my habanero peppers. So what I will do if I'm using any of these is I will just stick one in here and put in the idea of habaneros. Habanero. And I'll put in the date of planting. There. Some people put the date, some people don't. I really do not care or really mind. So I'm just going to put Feb. Oopsie. What's today's date? Okay, I'll just put February 25th. And that will, I'll set that aside. So when you want to start planting, it's always better for your soil to be moist before you start putting in the seeds. So I'm just going to put in a bit of water into this, and you can see as I'm putting water, it's beginning to get a little bit, what's the word, flattening a bit. That just shows that there's a bit of air in my water and the water is going through. If you find that when you're using your soil that the water takes a long time for it to pass through, then that just means that your soil is a little bit too dense. So you may want to spread it out a bit. So just putting in water in all of them to get ready for the seeds. And then you put in your seeds here. And then for each of the containers you're putting in, just put in maybe 3 or 4 seeds into each one. So I just like to sprinkle the seeds in. 3, 4, 5, all depending. So I'll do that. I think I'm not wearing my gloves. I hope the pepper seeds are not as pepperish as the pepper itself. Oh, this is what it is. So once the seeds are in, I know that's a bit more than 3 or 4 or 5, but that's okay. So once you have your seeds in, you just take I'll just going to use a knife and then just push it in and cover. Typically when you're putting in your seeds, you want your seeds to be about half an inch deep so they can actually start germinating. If you put your seeds too far in, it's going to take a long time to germinate. And if you put your seeds just on top, that doesn't help as well, because they don't have enough structure for it to germinate. So just bury it a little bit and that should be fine. Not too deep and not too shallow. That's what you need to do for these ones. Okay. Now, the other like the garden set you buy from Dollarama or wherever you get that from, the ones with the hood, they usually have like a transparent hood, and the transparent hood is there just to give it more, make it have like more of a greenhouse effect. So in lieu of a cover, what I do, that's my own household trick, is I use cling wrap to cover it, and that works, or has worked in the past. Let's see, hopefully that will work with this one as well. So I'm just finishing my seeds, and I'll get the cling wrap to cover it. So then for this one, I will put my habanero with my date in there, just for it to be covered. And then I get my cling wrap. This is, I will not call myself cheap, I'll call myself being prudent. So this is just the cling wrap to cover it, to give it the greenhouse effect. And the greenhouse effect really just is more about getting it to be a little bit moist. So like when heat touches it and it gets warm, the heat stays in, and it just makes it like a more fertile, if I can use that word, a more fertile ground for your seeds to germinate. So this is typically what is done. And then once this is done, I put it by the window, or I put my lights, and then I mount it and then leave it to be. Typically, when you want to water, you water your plants every day or every other day as a seedling, but sometimes you actually gauge it to see if it needs water or not. So in a couple of days we'll do our watering, or just to check, and I'll show you what needs to be done when you're doing this. If you decide to buy grow lights and use grow lights, I'll just show you a demonstration of what the grow lights look like. So these are my grow lights, and when you're putting in your grow lights need to be just above like 1 or 2 inches above your plants. That will also help them grow. If your grow lights are too far away, your seedlings will be a little bit leggy. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And one thing I tried one year when I didn't have grow lights, my first year, is I got my a lamp, and I just put my plants under a garden light. So the lamp. So that's what I use. So these are just the grow lights, and they should be, as I mentioned, just slightly above your plants, so they can actually give sufficient light. Okay, so remember I mentioned I'm going to show you the different methods. So for this one, this is the one that already has the preceded ones, where you just pour water in it, and then after a while the water will soak in the soil and it will plump up, and you can actually put your seeds. So for this one, I'm just going to pour water to soak it up. And then I'm going to set it aside for a while. This is like a couple of minutes later. You can see that even with the ones that I put it in, I didn't put in enough water. So it's already beginning to puff up, but there's still a couple of places that are still dry. So based on that, I will put in a bit more water, and also give it a little bit more time to still plump up a bit. Oopsie, I hope I didn't put too much water. Oh well, we'll see. Okay, so this is 10 minutes later, and all the waters have evaporated, you can see, but even when I touch it, I can see it's still feeling a little bit hard, which means that it's still not moist enough. So once again, I'm going to put in a bit more water, just to get things to be a little bit moist. The idea with soil when you're planting is it should not be too compact. it should be light enough where water can easily pass through it. So a bit more water, and then I will set it aside again, just for it to plump up and for it to soak up a little bit of water. Okay, so for this one, it's just the same thing. Putting the hole in here, and then putting the seeds in, and then pressing it to cover, and then putting it back in. So I've spread the seeds in. As I mentioned, this is a bit different. You just dig a hole, a little shallow hole, and put your seeds in. Yeah, so that's really how you do this. But with the pots, it's a bit different. Now for these ones, once I am done with the first half, this other half here, I'm going to put. Oopsie, I will close it. When it comes to watering, for this type, you may want to water above, but always make sure that there's a little bit of water in the bottom of the tray, so that if it's dry, your plants still have a source of nutrition, i.e. water. And when you're done, you can actually close it and then put it by the sun or by the window, and you're good to go in terms of using the pea pots to start gardening. The seed trays, and same process. For this seed trays, we have 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to put my grape, banana. I'm going to do chili peppers in this one. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. I'll do pimento peppers in here, and I'll do tatashe in this one. That's going to be just one. For this, I am going to wear my gloves this time since I'm dealing with soil. And I am going to get the soil from the seed starting mix. And I'm going to fill the containers. And don't press it down. Just, as I said, remember I mentioned that there should be a little bit of air. It shouldn't be like clamped down. So no need to press it down. Just pour it in. And spread it so that it's going across. And when you plant your seeds, it typically takes about, depending on what you're planting, I think for peppers it's about 14 days on an average for your seeds to germinate. For tomatoes it's about 7 to 10 days. But everything all depends on the weather conditions and the conditions of your seeds, and that typically, depending on your seeds have about 90 to 98% germination rate. And for some of the seeds you're buying, they actually put the germination rate on it if you decide to buy seeds. I have been fortunate to have a 98% germination rate with that. As I mentioned, side hustle, extra cash. When you're done with your seedlings, come May, if you have extras, you can actually sell your seedlings as well on Facebook or Kijiji. Yes, I was also mentioning anybody that wants to plant or wants to start, if you need seeds or need some guidance in how to get seeds, just shoot me an email or leave a comment on the channel, and I'll definitely reach out. As you can see, I actually have surplus seeds, so if you're in the environment or willing to make a trip, let me know. And I am a sharer, so I'll definitely share some of my seeds with you. It'll take a while, but it's almost done. Don't worry about any of this here. As clumsy as I am, don't worry about any of the soil going into the tray. That's one of the reasons why the trays are there, just to protect from water or anything else getting outside your starter kits or your container. So I am done filling these in. And as I said, you always your soil needs to be moist for your seeds, to give your seeds a better chance of growing. So I'm just going to spread this out to make sure I have everything covered. And then now I would get some water and then pour. Remember, I'm using my homemade water bottle. Okay, same thing. Just put your water, make sure that your soil is moist. The good thing with these containers, they claim, not what I said claim, they claim they're biodegradable. So you can actually cut them and put them into the soil when it's time to transplant. That's typically the preference of the why people may prefer this. Not necessarily me. I use it, but okay. So I've put in a bit of water in here. Then same thing as before, we start to put in our seeds. Like I said, on this side I am doing my tatashe. Yes. So I'm just going to put, oops, that's a bit too much, 3 or 4 seeds. I think I'm being a bit generous because I have quite a bit of seedlings, but that's okay. Just put in, oops, the seeds in there. I'll have to prune them. Okay. And then, yeah, and then thread it in and close it. In and close. Same thing, in and close. In and close. So you get the drift. This is, if you're using your starting mix oil, this is a lot easier to do because it's very loose, which is the ideal scenario for planting. So once you cover it, you can add a little bit of water again. And sometimes when you water, you'll notice that some of the seeds bulge up. So once that's done, just put it back in, or press it back in. And those seeds might be a little bit too high. So if you water and you notice your seeds are a little bit too in, or too floating, let me use that word, just press it in and you would be fine. So I'm going to do the same thing for this other side with my other peppers, and then we close the lid and get it ready for what's the word? Light. Then that's it. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to, the good thing with these, since I couldn't use them for the other one, I'm just going to turn it around. So what I did with this one is I just cut it to make sure it goes in. I'm going to strike this out. As I said, reduce, reuse, recycle. And for this side, I'm just going to put here my tatashe. And I'm going to put it in here. Now, because I have cut reduce the depth of these, I'm able to put it in, and when the time comes, I will be able to cover it. So that's, as I said, reduce, reuse, recycle. Okay, so now I'm done with everything. Then I close the lid. Don't worry if your lid doesn't fit 100%, that's okay. The important thing is just for it to be closed. And once you have your lid, then I'm going to set them up on my grow shelf with my grow lights. Thank you very much for joining for this session, and then our next episode will be just showing you how the plants are progressing and what to do to make sure your seedlings grow as. Okay, so this is the space in daylight, or rather in the morning, and you can see there's quite a bit of sun coming in through the windows. And this is why I choose to put my plants. Best place in your house that has sunlight is the best place for it. And then, with the sun comes heat. And then remember, as I mentioned, there is the vent at the bottom, so that also helps in terms of providing heat.